Hey, good afternoon, or wherever you are, good day. It's Thursday. I usually do my live streams on Friday, and I'm gonna, from here on out, I'm gonna switch them over to Thursday at 12 noon because, well, my time, Eastern time, because I'm typically teaching on Fridays. I'm typically like out of town or something, or often teaching. So I decided it would be better to switch to Thursday. So thank you for being here. Thanks for joining me. And please leave comments and questions. I'm happy to get to those during the course of the live stream. Typically, I try and keep these under 15 minutes. Today's topic is yoga and the window of tolerance. I posted a graphic on my recent newsletter. So if you got my newsletter, you can look for the graphic there. I also posted a graphic. No, I didn't. I will post the same graphic when this one's over. I'll post the same graphic on this live stream too, so you can see. Actually, I think I can do that while let me see. I think I can do that right now while I'm talking. No, I can't. So I'll put it up there afterwards. So I wanted to talk about this idea of improving resilience in the nervous system, and a model that I've used for it for many years comes from this book by Daniel Siegel, which is called, let's see if you can see that there. It's called Mindsight. The book is not like a tremendously wonderful read, but it's good. It's got good information. I mean, it's not as much fun as some of the other books, like Body Keeps the Score is a great book, or The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. Those are books that are also about trauma and the nervous system and neuroscience. And Dan Siegel's great to watch, though. If you watch his free YouTube videos, he's really exciting, and you'll learn a lot about neuroscience from him. So let me talk about how this has to do with what this has to do with yoga and what it has to do with the nervous system. So first of all, this Siegel's idea is called the window of tolerance. And I think right there, that's a interesting concept. And so we start to think about what we can tolerate in our lives, So for example, some people can't tolerate, cold, or some people can't tolerate the heat. Other people can't tolerate bad driving. Some people can't tolerate, bad grammar. So there's all sorts of things in our lives, and some things we tolerate really well, and we tolerate better than other people, and other things we don't tolerate so well. So it's kind of interesting to start to look at all these windows, because we have windows around all of these different things in our lives, many different things in our lives. And so the way that Siegel shows the window like this is that top part of the window, when you go up too far in the top part of the window, you get into what he calls hyperarousal. So hyperarousal, typically that means your nervous system is like too jacked up. You might feel angry, you might feel anxious, you might feel fearful, you might even feel rageful when you go into that hyperarousal. So hyperarousal of the nervous system, we want to be able to calm down and ground, get out of that hyper arousal. And then the bottom part of the window down here, he talks about that as hypoarousal. And that's when we go into depression or shutdown or avoidance behavior. And so that also, the nervous system goes into not a great place, and it's difficult to connect. So the idea is to try and find this middle ground, and that's what he calls optimal arousal. We want to get into that optimal place. When you're in that optimal place, you make good decisions, you can think clearly, you have rational adult behavior, you do a good job at adulting, rational adult behavior. I think tolerance is something that all of us understand in our lives, like what we can tolerate and what we can't tolerate. But the nervous system idea about tolerance, I think, is quite useful, particularly when we're trying to help students understand what we're doing in yoga classes, right? Beyond just stretching your hamstrings or, improving cardiovascular fitness or improving, flexibility and strength. What are we doing beyond? And So one of my missions in life is to help my students and help the people that I train be able to share with our students, the difference between a fitness focus to your yoga practice and a resilience building, a nervous system resiliency focus to your yoga practice. When you're trying to build resilience in the nervous system, that's going to transfer to the rest of your life, right? When you're using yoga to build resilience in the nervous system, it's going to translate into how you accommodate, how you deal with the challenges in your life. So that's why I think it's a very useful model. And then we talk about, well, how does yoga help, right? So essentially there's 4 process tools of yoga. The psychologists, the Kripalu Research Consortium, and psychologists who worked on that article called The Potential Self-Regulatory Mechanisms of Yoga for Mental Health, break down the yoga system into 4 process tools: emotional, ethical engagement, mindful movement or asanas, breathing practices, and meditation. So that system is, I think, one of the most amazing tools, low cost, low risk, person-centered, amazing tool to help to shift not just our nervous systems personally, but to help make a whole cultural shift, I think, if we are able to teach people how to use these tools to regulate the nervous system. Now, going back to the window, what you're trying to do with yoga practices in the window is take that window, like, I have so little tolerance for bullshit right now. I have so little yes, last night I was sitting at my computer and I'm like working hard because I've got this course coming up, and I'm working hard on the course, and I have this I put the deadline on myself that I had to finish this one thing yesterday. So my son comes up, my 14-year-old comes home from school, and we always do our like come from school thing. We have a little time and have a little break, but then I'm sitting here at my computer like working hard on my really focused. My attention networks are like really going at it, trying to get this manual that I'm working on done. And then my son comes up behind me and he's like, Mom, so I want to tell you about this new screensaver, this new screen shield that I've got for my phone because I bought this. And I was like, okay, honey, I need to talk to you about that in a little bit because I got to focus right now. And he's like, okay. And then like 2 minutes later, he's like, so Mom, if I get this one thing for my phone, it's going to be like it's going to have this like fan on it, and it's going to help me play this video game better. And I was like, I don't care about your goddamn video games, So inside, I'm not tolerating the constant disruption, and my attention networks are like coming out of my head and falling on the floor, and they look like, like the LA freeway system. Like I'm trying to focus, So I'm going into hyper arousal. And then I started to notice myself, and intrinsically I start doing this anyway. I started going, I call it mom pranayama. So I'm starting to do my mom pranayama. And then I was like, oh, I'm doing my mom pranayama. Good. That reminds me I can be more mindful. I can use some of my top-down skills from my front brain and be more mindful. It's okay. He's 14. I have to tolerate it. And then I can have a conversation instead of just being like, go away. Like I go and see what he needs, get that taken care of, come back and finish my work, and that is in effect opening my window of tolerance to that particular situation. Anybody who's a parent gets that. Parents really need big, big windows of tolerance, right? So I'm using the practices to open my window of tolerance around that situation. And so yoga practices, here's the thing. Yoga practices can not only in the short term or in the immediate term open your window, which I just kind of described with my son, but what they can do in the long term is keep your window open, right? They can pry that window open and keep it wider open so that you can handle more in your life. You can handle whatever life throws at you. And so this, I think, is one of the most powerful potentials of the yoga practices to help us be able to tolerate what life throws at us. And then, beyond tolerating, you want to go into the positive psychology stuff, which is the thriving stuff. Like then when I can tolerate, right, when I'm balanced from a neurobiology perspective, when I'm balanced, when my nervous system is balanced, the thing that can happen from there is that I can start to self-actualize. I can start to self-express. I can live out the meaning and purpose of my life. I can understand my identity. So I talk about Yoga Sutra 1 and Yoga Sutra 2, 1.2 and 1.3 as exactly meaning that. Yoga is the practice of balancing the fluctuations of the mind so that we become more resilient, more balanced, more resilient. And then via that resilience, we can focus on other stuff, the stuff that we want to do in the world, the stuff that we want to get out in the world. So I hope that is a helpful little explanation of the window of affect tolerance. I will, as I mentioned, the book is Mindsight by Dan Siegel. There it is. You can see it. And I will put the graphic. The graphic's not in here, but he has had it other places in other articles. I'll put the graphic on the comments. Thank you for being here. I see a few people commented, Diane and Jennifer. Nice to see you both here. If you have questions or comments about this topic, please leave them here. And I'll see you next week on Thursday for my next live stream. Take care. Namaste.